You know, there's a set of numbers out there that can tell you if a company's blockbuster sales are the real deal or just a complete illusion. Today, we're diving into receivables ratios. They are the absolute key to understanding how fast a company actually gets paid. And that one little detail, well, it can reveal everything about its true financial strength.
So think about this for a second. You see a company making headlines, smashing sales records. Your first thought might be, wow, I should invest, right? But is that really the smart move? The truth is, those huge sales numbers can be seriously misleading. And why is that? Because a sale is not actually a sale until the cash is in the bank, period. Until that happens, it's really just an IOU from a customer. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. How good a company is at turning those IOUs into cold, hard cash. This brings us to what I like to call the sales illusion. It is so easy to get wowed by big revenue numbers. But hey, if a company is super slow to collect its cash, it's kind of like a fancy sports car with a leaky gas tank. It might look amazing on the outside, but believe me, it is not going to get very far. So, let's be clear on what we're talking about. Receivables is just the money that customers owe a company for stuff they've already bought on credit. Really, you can just think of it as the company's to-do list for collecting cash from its customers. So why do we care so much about this IOU list? Because it's like a window into the company's soul. It tells you everything. How fast does the money actually show up? Are they just giving credit to anyone to pump up sales? And the big one, is there a cash flow crisis waiting just around the corner? This is where you see how well management is really running the show. Okay, so to get these answers, you're going to need the right tools. We're about to add 4 really powerful ratios to your financial toolkit. Think of them as your X-ray glasses for seeing right through the hype and into a company's real financial health. All right, tool number 1 is the accounts receivable turnover ratio. Now, don't let the fancy name scare you off. All this tells you is how many times in a year the company manages to collect all the money it's owed. It's just a pure measure of how fast they get that cash. And it really comes down to this. A high turnover? That's a well-oiled machine. They're getting paid fast, probably from great customers. But a low turnover? Ooh, that is a huge red flag. It means cash is getting stuck somewhere, and that can literally starve a company of the oxygen it needs to operate. So for example, let's say a company has a turnover ratio of 10. That just means it collects its entire receivables balance 10 times a year. Now, that number is useful, but we can make it even easier to understand with our next tool. And that brings us to Days Sales Outstanding, or just DSO. This is where things get really simple and honestly really useful. Instead of talking about times per year, DSO just tells you the average number of days it takes the company to get paid. It's the same info, just way more intuitive. He couldn't be simpler. A low DSO is fantastic. Cash is coming in fast. A high DSO, though, means payments are slow, which could point to problems with customers or, even worse, a serious strain on the company's cash. So remember that company with a turnover of 10? To get the DSO, all you do is divide 365 days in a year by 10, and that gives you 36.5 days. See how they're just two sides of the same coin? It takes them, on average, a little over a month to get paid. Now, that is a number you can really wrap your head around and compare. Okay, our third tool is the accounts receivable to sales ratio. This one's like a snapshot in time. It tells you what chunk of a company's total sales is still sitting there uncollected. It's basically a measure of how much they depend on credit sales. Now, a high percentage here can be a bit of a warning sign. It's like a tightrope walker working without a net. The company is just too reliant on credit to make its numbers. A low percentage, on the other hand, shows they're on solid ground, with plenty of cash sales and smart credit controls. And finally, we have the allowance for doubtful accounts ratio. This one is so fascinating because it's a peek inside management's head. It measures the percentage of all those IOUs that the company's own leadership expects they will never collect. And here's the deal, you want to see a realistic number here. It shows that management is being honest and prudent about its risks. But what if you see a teeny tiny allowance? Well, at the same time, the number of days it takes to get paid is going up. That is a massive red flag. It could mean management is either in denial, or worse, they're actively trying to hide a problem. Okay, so we've got our 4 tools. Now, individually, they're pretty useful. But when you start to combine them, that is when the real story comes to life. A story about the company's health that the glossy income statement will never, ever tell you. Just look at how these combinations create a whole narrative. You see a high turnover and a low DSO? Boom, that's a clear sign of excellent collections.
But what if you see that DSO creeping up, combined with a suspiciously low allowance for bad debt? That's a classic sign that there could be trouble brewing. And of course, seeing consistent, stable ratios over time, that almost always points to strong, disciplined management.
So now you know how to read the story, but what separates a great story from a not so great one? Let's talk for a second about what good actually looks like with these numbers. As a general rule of thumb, a day's sales outstanding, the DSO, of under 45 days is usually considered pretty healthy. It just means the company is turning its sales into cash in about a month and a half, which for most industries is a really solid pace. And for that AR turnover ratio, a strong range is typically somewhere between 8 and 12 times a year. This shows a steady, efficient cycle of selling, collecting, collecting. You get the picture. But listen, this is the golden rule, and it's the most important part. Context is everything. A 45-day DSO means nothing in a vacuum. You have to compare it. Compare it to the company's own performance last year. Compare it to its biggest competitors. And most importantly, look at the trend over time. Is it getting better or is it getting worse?
At the end of the day, just remember this one thing. Sales can be fudged, profits can be engineered, but you cannot fake cash flow. It is the ultimate truth teller about a company's real-world strength.
So the next time you're looking at a company, don't just read the headlines. Now you have the tools to read between the lines. Go out there and find the real story. So what is your investment's cash flow telling you?